that I'm still alive. Oh yeah, I got some scars, but I'm still alive. In spite of calamity, He still has a plan for me, and it's working for my good, and it's building my testimony. So that I may.
Hi, my name is Brittany Harris. I am a minister at Advanced Church Columbus in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm honored that I get the opportunity to share my testimony with you. I grew up in church. My parents took me to church all the time when I was a little girl, and I really grew up, going to church every Sunday. We went to Bible study through the week, and I spent a lot of time at church. I sang in the youth choir, and I watched my parents in ministry. They were on the worship team. They were very highly regarded in the church, and so we spent a lot of time at church. And so I knew the word. I sat in big church. I sat in children's church. I knew how to take notes and things like that. And I really spent, a lot of time around church and church people and believers. And I believe that I had a love of God, of what I knew of God. But at this point, I hadn't had my own personal experience with God. So when I hit my teenage years, I got very, very rebellious. I got very rambunctious, very, curious about everything that church was saying that I was missing. I wanted to know what it was like to get involved in all kinds of sin. And so because I wanted to know, I did. And once I hit 18, you couldn't tell me nothing. And I really did whatever I decided that I wanted to do. I got pregnant at a young age. I got pregnant right after I graduated high school. Was barely an adult, but I was a parent. And even then, that didn't cause me to come to the Lord. I just decided that, I was done with church. I didn't want to keep doing church. I didn't want to have to make that commitment. Like, I wasn't ready to give God my life, with what I had learned about having a relationship with God. It was all these rules and all these restrictions, and you couldn't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And that's all I heard, and that's all I knew, and I didn't want to do it. So I left the church, and I was like, I'm out here. I was just out living my life. I was just out doing my own thing, sleeping with whoever I wanted to sleep with, drinking and, partying and all of this crazy stuff, all while being a young parent and just, like I said, living life however I wanted to live life. But I hit a point where I was in a relationship and it went bad. It went so bad. I given this man everything that I knew how to give him. Like, I gave him my time, I gave him my affection, I gave him my body, I gave him everything that I thought was enough to earn his love, to earn his trust, and to get what I felt I needed. And that still wasn't enough. And when, like I said, that relationship ended, I hit rock bottom. I knew that I needed something else. I knew that I had needed more. I looked at my life, and it had been 7 years, and I was like, I'm just doing this and nothing's coming from it. I'm just out here just living, and this isn't it. Like, it wasn't right. And I knew the answer was Christ because I had that foundation, because I had grown up in church. But because of that, at a young age, I didn't have my own personal relationship with God. I had never really fully experienced him for myself. So after I got to this point where I reached the bottom, I hit rock bottom, and I just was broken. I was hurt. I was bruised. I finally began to consider giving my life to the Lord. And so I found my church through one of the guys that attends there. I found actually it on Twitter, And I remember watching a message that my pastor was preaching, and he said everything that I needed. God gave him everything that I needed him to say for me in that moment. And that began to change my life. It began to create a spark in me. And so I started to go to church, but I still wasn't ready to, follow those rules and make those changes. But the more that I went, the more that I exposed myself to the Lord and to the presence of God, something began to shift and something began to change. I tried to go back to my old life, but I couldn't quite do it. And then I finally realized that God had arrested my heart. It was very much like Paul in the book of Acts, when he was on his way to Damascus. He had his own plan for his life. He had his own agenda for his life. But God had another agenda. And God ran smack into Paul and knocked him off his horse. And he changed the course of his life. And that's what the Lord did for me. I had my agenda. I had my plan. I knew what I was going to do. But when I had that encounter with him, it was one night. It was New Year's Eve. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was New Year's Eve, and I remember like having an encounter with God that changed my life, and like it made me fall in love with him. And that was the very first time that I really truly felt his love for me. And when I experienced his love for me, that's what changed my life. Like that's what helped me, really want to follow his rules. It wasn't just a list of rules. It was about creating relationship with him. It wasn't just about you can't do this, you can't do that, but it was about how do I express my love to you through my obedience to him, my obedience to God. How do I express my love to God through my obedience to him? And so I just believe that when you really get to a point where you realize that you don't know what's best for your life. Maybe you've tried a whole bunch of things. Maybe, you've tried to have a successful career or to have a successful relationship, or you've tried drinking, you've tried partying, you tried a bunch of things to numb it, but nothing's working. All of those are temporary fixes. But when you really give up your life for Christ, he exchanges our dirty, filthy lives for something that's so much more beautiful. The Bible talks about beauty for ashes, and I'm a living witness that throughout all of my bad decisions, throughout all of all the mess that I created, all the ashes that were created out of what I did with my life, God has been able to turn it and make it so much more beautiful. I've experienced love like I've never experienced. I experienced peace like I've never experienced. I experienced a peace of mind like never before. I experienced joy like never before. Like, let me tell you, even in the midst of the most tumultuous, chaotic times of my life, there's a joy that comes from the inside because of my relationship with him. So I encourage you, maybe you haven't really fully devoted your life to Christ. Try him. It's worth it. I put my life on it.